I've said this before, but I believe that the Western world is heading towards a massive mental health crisis, mainly fueled by wokeness, coming from the far left media, most likely with interference from hostile states who wish to undermine the Western way of life. Of course, there are also woke parents and teachers, and social contagion, being fueled itself by social media, the worst of which is the modern equivalent of the Victorian freak show, TikTok. Now, TikTok reports directly to the Chinese government, and in the PRC, TikTok is very different. It's a tool used for education, about engineering, science and mathematics, whereas in the Western world, we have children and also adults who can't decide what gender they are, whether or not they identify as human, which pronouns they should use for the next half an hour before changing them for the general annoyance of the general public, and which psychological disorder they should be faking in order to gain attention. That is not healthy. So, whilst the powers that be in the Western world still can't decide what a woman is it worth highlighting that in other countries, for example in Russia, and I'm not making this up, in some Russian high schools, extracurricular activities include hand-to-hand combat and knife fighting. The average Chinese 12-year-old can strip and rebuild a submachine gun. In the West, many of our youngsters are crying in their designated safe spaces. Is it time to start getting worried? Thus today, we will meet a number of people who are trying to get... I'm not even sure what it is they're trying to get across, but they don't come across as entirely sane. Now, this first clip, this is a woman who I believe is seriously in crisis and needs help, so I'm not going to make any fun of her whatsoever. This is being used as a benchmark.
Get ready with me while I have a mental fucking breakdown. So how do you like the new hairstyle? We're all gonna...
If we think back a few years to when Britney Spears got her head shaved, most of us thought Britney's gone fucking nuts. Now she is a celebrity and was used to being followed around all the time with cameras, whereas now we all have a TV studio in our back fucking pocket. And I think what's happening now is that someone in crisis, it's not enough now to do it privately or with friends and family or with a doctor or even a therapist. Now there are people, and I believe this woman falls into this category, who need validation through social media. That is both terrible and terrifying. It's also the only sensible part of this video. Next up, we have a cross-dressing man, because why not? And for a number of these clips, I've muted the audio. Firstly, because I could get copyrighted. Secondly, I can't be fucked to react to them. And thirdly, because without the music, it shows how creepy these clips really are. Of course, cross-dressing has gone on for centuries. But it used to be done in specialist clubs or behind closed doors. Not as publicly or as enthusiastically as it has been done for the last decade or so. Now that gentleman, does he look mentally stable? Would you trust him to be alone with sharp objects? Because I am fascinated at what that look is meant to be. He's got the Turkish teeth, so chief, never go to Africa because the poachers will shoot you for the ivory. But what's going on with the fake tan? All I can think is, that's a man who wants to look mixed race, biracial, whatever the term is this fucking week, but doesn't really understand the concept. Because if you have one black parent and one white parent, you don't come out looking like a fucking zebra. Nor do you come out, as we see here, with a white face, a brown body, and arms fading to black. What is going on there? Next up, we have another person, I believe, getting ready for an exciting night out. That was Harley Quinn, and the audio I muted was Holding On for a Hero by Bonnie Tyler. Now, I love that song. It's been ruined for me. I've muted it so I don't ruin it for you. I remember, though, when the film Suicide Squad came out about 8-9 years ago. I remember watching that thinking, this is the worst superhero movie I've ever seen. Since then, the woke mind virus set in, and now there's loads of shit worse than that. But when the Harley Quinn film, Birds of Prey, came out, I thought, it can't be any worse than Suicide Squad. How quickly I was stood corrected. The sad thing is that for years now, there have been less than attractive women who thought and still think they can pull off the Harley Quinn look. Now, given that Margot Robbie couldn't save those movies and she's one of the fittest women on the face of the fucking earth, why does Sharon from the fish counter think she's got it down? If anyone's wondering where the Joker is, it looks like Harley Quinn fucking ate him. And she doesn't look like Harley Quinn. She looks more like one of the villains from the B-movie horror film Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Now, for many years, the Harley Quinn costume has been the go-to for women for Halloween parties. I suspect now, though, we have a new one.
What's one move in bed that makes a man go crazy every time?
You gotta give him that huck to it. Spit on that.
God bless her. If you've seen any of the interviews with that woman, she does come across genuinely as very nice. Anyway, if we're looking for examples of woke insanity, you can do little better than looking at the cult of gender ideology and pronouns. And coming up, we have a clip which I've cut right down of a Canadian woman who's applied for a business account at a bank. And this is pretty much as mad as it gets.
One of my partners who I'm legally married to, who is a cisgendered man using he, him pronouns, and I, registered a business together. So naturally, we went to a bank in order to set up business banking. In the meeting, I was very clear that I use they, them pronouns and that I am a gender-defiant human. Now, obviously, the small-town person working at the bank really didn't know what to do with that, but was polite regardless. So after a little while, we waited at the mail and we received our business credit cards. Today, on a casual Sunday morning, my partner noticed this envelope sitting on our counter and was like, oh, maybe we should open it. Opened it up to look at the names that were registered on our credit cards. His had his full name, and mine said Mrs. Marla last name. Now, first of all, being called Mrs. is something that really doesn't work for me because I do not identify as such, and also I do not identify with that gender prefix. But more than anything, why would my name need to tie me legally to someone that I am married to? I own 51% of this company, actually. And his, if it would have said Mr., I would have still been annoyed for being misgendered. But the fact is that he, as a cisgendered man, gets to be, by the bank, considered just his own floating human being in the world, whereas I have to be attached to the person I'm legally married to, who is a man.
Where to start? Well, right off the bat, she states that she's in multiple relationships, so she's polyamorous. And if you're watching this and you're poly, if that works for you, I couldn't be happier for you. However, I've noticed recently, with polyamorous types, they're getting to be almost as irritating as the non-binary crowd, inasmuch as they have to tell everyone their most personal details. They're not as bad as non-binaries. We've all met these people who, out of nowhere, will say, I'm non-binary. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't ask. Well, you're being a transphobe. Anyway, I really feel for the person working at the bank that day. Because when she comes in and announces she's a gender-defiant human, that person must have thought, here comes fucking trouble. And I want to sympathise with her that she doesn't like the prefix Mr. or Mrs. I want to sympathise, but I don't. I think she's just being awkward. Because if a bank account requires a title, saying my pronouns are they, them, that doesn't count as a sodding title. Normally, if you open a bank account, you have to bring your passport and a utility bill. If I was running a bank, for her, I'd say I also want to see a copy of a psychiatrist's letter. But why is her husband allowed to be out and free in the world? Well, I'm guessing it's because he's not acting like a bloody lunatic. It's not the 1930s anymore, love. You don't need to change your name when you get married. But I question, why did he marry her? Her vagina must be lined with silk because her looks and her personality, they aren't cutting it for me. I've got one clip left and it's a very old clip, but it's been doing the rounds again on social media. This is of a gender reveal, and when we look at the father, I think this is the way most of us feel when we hear about new versions of wokeness. His expression, I think that's how most of us react when we meet someone for the first time and they tell us that their pronouns. Or if we're told that nurses have to start calling women chest feeders. Or if we're told that another 40 genders have been discovered and they all have their own flags. Now I feel for that man because I'm guessing he is under the thumb. I would bet that when he and his lady wife go away, in the hotel room he has to sit on that chair. And if you don't know what I mean by that chair, we've all seen it. Every hotel room has the chair facing the bed. The cuck chair. Where he has to sit watching his wife getting fucked by the local darts team, pretending that he's enjoying it. And if he hadn't been emasculated enough, there's that gender reveal. Now, most gender reveals are entirely narcissistic and done well before the child is born. Whereas that guy has got to stand there and pretend to smile, knowing that his son is now his daughter. I don't think we need to worry about foreign powers. We don't need to panic about Russia or Iran or China or North Korea or any rogue state wiping us out. We're more than capable of doing that for ourselves. That's the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, please do like and subscribe if you haven't already. And as ever, thanks for watching. I know I've said it before, but I believe that the Western world is heading for a massive mental health crisis. And I can't remember my next line. So whilst the powers that be in the Western world are still arguing over what a woman is, if we look at other countries, say Russia or China, where, again, I fucked it up, we'll meet a number of... Thing is that there are many women who thought and still think that they can pull off the look of Harley Quinn. Now, given that Margot Robbie, who's one of the hottest women, I'll fuck that up as well. Any clips with that woman, she does come across as genuinely nice, albeit I wouldn't want her doing surgery or working on a nuclear reactor. Where to begin? Right at the start of the clip, she says she's, fucking does say that, does she? To begin. Right at the start of the clip, she says that she's married to one of the people she's in a relationship with. So she's bollocks to it. And if you're watching this and you're poly, that's great for you, as long as it was fucking bollocks. Right at the start of the clip, she says she's in... Oh, fucking doesn't say any of that shit. Shut up, Dan.